Hey everybody, welcome back to a channel about watches. Today's video is going to be a review on the limited release Omega Speedmaster 2026 Milano Cortina Winter Olympic Edition. Now that's quite a mouthful, but basically Omega is the official timekeeper of the Olympics, and they like to release special edition watches for both winter and summer. Now, what really intrigued me about this watch is, first of all, I've actually been looking for an Omega Speedmaster for about 4 years. I've been looking for a Speedmaster for a very long time, but I couldn't find one that fit me just right, and I couldn't find one that was special enough that justified buying a Speedmaster. And you can see here, there's the Omega and Olympic branding here. So I didn't buy this watch specifically because it's an Olympic special edition, which, by the way, they don't say it's a limited edition, just a special edition, but I'm assuming they'll probably stop production. They'll stop it shortly after the Olympics ends, which is in February 2026. So you can see here, it comes, by the way, I should just mention, it comes in a really nice watch roll with the branding, kind of this white leather texture, and the warranty information is down below. So honestly, pretty simple unboxing experience, but you know what, it does the job done, gets the job done. I do like the white theme of the unboxing. So as I was saying, I've been looking for a Speedmaster for a while, but I just couldn't find one that really stuck out to me. And this one, when I first saw the press release about a month ago, I just jumped on it because look at this watch. I hope the camera can actually pick up what this looks like because it just looks so nice. This here is a Speedmaster 38mm. So it's a bit smaller than your typical 42mm. So let's just quickly talk about, the Speedmaster reduced, because originally the Speedmaster actually was around 39mm, but shortly after they kind of went onto this a theme of a 42mm watch, and they kept that for quite a while. But then in 1988 they released the Speedmaster reduced, which was a 39mm case, automatic movement instead of hand winding, and a few other changes here and there. And it was basically, their goal was to make a Speedmaster that was a little bit cheaper, more affordable, a little bit smaller. They kept that up for about 20 years, and then they discontinued the original reduced. But recently, they've kind of revived the Speedmaster reduced in their 38mm version. And this counts as part of their 38mm collection. So a little bit actually smaller than the reduced technically, but it keeps all the elements of a Speedmaster still. So let's just go over the specs first, because I think a lot of people are interested in the sizing, because again, it's not a full-size Speedmaster. So the diameter is 38mm, as I've mentioned before, 45mm lug to lug. And I believe the Speedmaster, the full-size Speedmaster it's like 47 lug to lug, I want to say. I do have a moon swatch to compare to later today. The thickness is 14.75. So that's going to be a very, very interesting size for a lot of people. And I'll go into more detail in just a second here. Let's actually just go over the lugs, because let's see, I want to say it's 18mm lugs. Let's see here, 17. Yeah, these are 18mm lugs. So that kind of gives you a general overview on the sizing of this watch. I'm going to put this back on my wrist just so you can see it. So this is my 6-inch wrist, and you can see that from my angle, from my perspective, it actually doesn't wear like a 14.75mm thick watch. And you might think that maybe I'm just being delusional, which I could be. I could very well be. But I believe the reason why it doesn't feel as thick, I don't know if I can get the angle here, but if you look here, you can see that when the watch, I'm kind of pointed down, that's why I'm holding it down, but typically when you have this watch on, it's your skin is making contact with the crown, right? I don't know if we can show the opposite, but you can see that basically this watch, it like sinks down. So let's just go through the side profile again. This part below the lugs actually sinks into your skin. So if you take that out, and you measure it from the lug, it kind of feels like maybe a 10, maybe we'll include some of the lip, like an 11 millimeter watch. Honestly, it kind of feels like that just because a lot of the thickness comes from below the case or below the lugs. Because the thickness is centered there, again, it kind of feels like an 11 millimeter watch. And I believe the Speedmaster is like 12.5 millimeters. So honestly, I'm not trying to like trick anybody. I'm not trying to be delusional. It does not feel like a 14.75 millimeter thick watch, which is really good. But anyways, let's keep going with this. I'm going to leave out the dial for now because I'm going to talk about that more in depth. This is a stainless steel case, and you can see it's actually high polish all around, which is a difference from the Moon watch. The Moon watch, like the 42 millimeter full-size Speedmaster, has more of a brush finish, but this one is a highly polished stainless steel case. The bracelet is also stainless steel. What's nice about this is it actually has a micro adjust. It has a very simple micro adjust. I don't know if I can show it here, but you can see right there, it says to push. And if I push this, you see that it can give you a little bit of leeway. There's a little spring bar there. So that gives you probably like a few millimeters of leeway. So that's just a little micro adjust with the clasp. Brush finish with the clasp. There's like a few scratches there already. That just shows you like I've been wearing this watch every day for the past week. I've even worn it to bed a few times. So stainless steel, button push to release. You can see the back here is Milano Cortina 2026, 100 meters of water resistance. So that's also different from your typical Speedmaster, which is usually 30 meters of water resistance. So higher water resistance. You have the Milano Cortina engraving in the back. And this is almost the only reference to the Olympics in this whole watch. It's just the case back. Because if you look at it here, there's really no reference to the Olympics. And trust me, there are some Speedmasters in the past where you could like clearly tell this was an Olympics watch. This one, actually not so much. What else to say? I mean, this is a Speedmaster, so you know that this is a chronograph. So I can click on this pusher, starts the seconds hand, you stop it, reset, all those functions work. It does come with a date window at the 6 o'clock. And you know what? I've been waiting too long. Let's just talk about the dial. This is the first really, really good thing about this dial is if you see here, it kind of gives you that zigzag white pattern. I think that's like the 2 and the 26 for 2026 Olympics. That is like, I guess it's cool, but what I really like is the blue around it. It kind of gives it this like marbled, frosted look. It's such a nice tinge of blue. It's not like a in-your-face turquoise Tiffany blue. I honestly find that blue to actually sometimes be too overwhelming, but this one is a mix of white and light blue. It's almost like the color of the sky or the color of, it reminds me of the mountains in winter when you have a blue sky in the background. You have a ceramic bezel, also dark blue, again, very appropriate, for the theme. I love that chronograph seconds hand, how it goes from that almost white, light blue, all the way to the dark blue. Very nice touch here. And everything just in general for this watch, it feels like the original Speedmaster reduced. And you might be confused, like what does that mean? Basically, the new Speedmaster 38s, they don't, how do I describe this? They just don't look like the old Speedmaster reduced. So what do I mean by that? Let me just pull up, I'm gonna put a comparison. So I'll put a picture right here. So the new Speedmaster reduced, they don't have the same bezel. The bezel looks different. For some of the Speedmaster 38s, the subdials are oval instead of circular, which I don't like. And of course, some of these new reduced have like jewels and like diamonds on them. Definitely more catered to a female audience, but I just don't think the new Speedmasters look as good. This one looks much more like a real Speedmaster. Sorry, I shouldn't say that. It feels more like the full-size Speedmaster, which I think was a really great choice. This looks way more classic, just way more balanced in terms of profile. And I think they did a really good job there. Now, one complaint I saw online, which I thought was kind of funny, was the date window. And I can show you just to confirm, like it shows 18, and people were kind of freaking out, like they weren't freaking out about this, but they freaked out, by the way, to change the date, you have to use this tool that they give you. Basically, you could probably use a pin. You just have to push this presser here. So let's go to 26, 4, 5, 6. So again, people didn't like this date font, which is fair. It's kind of a strange font. But the reason why it's at 26 is, you can probably guess now, it's because the Olympics are being held in 2026. So some people were complaining online like, oh, you know, like this watch has such a weird date window, but no, or date wheel. The date wheel, it's only the 26th that has that look. Otherwise, you just saw it there. Like, it's a normal date window. So I wouldn't worry too much about that if you were worried about it. But you can tell, also here's a side profile just to see, it's not like the original Speedmaster Reduced where the pushers were out of line. You can see that they're all lined up here perfectly. I really love this dial. This is probably the main reason why I bought this to begin with, is just, it's such a nice dial. I can't really think of another watch that looks like this. I think the closest one is probably the Omega Speedmaster Snoopy, but we know how hard that one is to get. So that's the first thing, exceptional dial. Second thing, returns back to the original Speedmaster look. Third thing is that, let's just talk about price quickly. This watch is 8,600 Canadian dollars. But in the US, it's like 6,800 USD, and in euros, it's 6,600. And if you do the math, it's actually the cheapest in Canada for some reason. Because 6,800 USD is like about 9,600 Canadian dollars ish. So you can kind of see it as this watch is like 1,000 Canadian dollars cheaper in Canada. I don't know why, but it's actually a good deal to buy watches in Canada now for some reason. Third thing I want to mention, again, this is all in all a Speedmaster. You know, it's a Speedmaster first, a great watch second, and an Olympics watch third. I know there's some controversy with the Olympics, so rest assured, like, this watch is barely an Olympics watch. I think more like the theme. It's a winter themed Speedmaster, and it's sort of a Olympics themed Speedmaster. So if you're worried about the Olympic branding, if you wear this watch, you can't even tell that it's an Olympics watch. So much more subtle, and it just feels so nice on the wrists. Like, I think the bracelet's a good upgrade. The proportions are good, but you know what? Let's talk about some downsides, because not every watch is perfect. It is still relatively thick. You know, I can't deny it. Even though most of it sinks into the wrist, the problem with it being thicker is that I wear my watches a little bit loose. And the reason why is because, you know, right now it's like -20 where I am right now in Alberta. So my wrist is actually probably the thinnest it's going to be. But when I go work out, or, you know, I start getting hot indoors, or it's the summertime, my wrist swells up. And when my wrist swells up, then this watch will be not as loose. But right now it's like kind of loose. And the problem with thick watches that are worn loose is you get this. It kind of sags because it's so big. Often, sometimes I'll like be wearing the watch and it'll like start to sag. You probably can't even tell it's sagging that much, because by doing this review, like, I'm heating up. So now it's like staying pretty tight on my wrist. But if it's really, really cold, and because it's so thick, it will start to sag. So I can't deny it. Like, this watch is thick. So that's something to keep in mind. Second thing is that at this price point, which is about, you know, 8,600 Canadian dollars, like, you can definitely buy a used full-size 42mm Omega Speedmaster. So, you know, at that point, you know, maybe it's just better to buy a used full Speedmaster. You know, if you want the original Moon watch, you know, you don't like the reduced, you don't like the proportions, you can take that 8,600 and pretty much just buy a full-size Speedmaster. So just keep that in mind. 8,600 is still a lot. 8,600 Canadian, again, 6,800 USD. And the last thing I want to mention here is the rotor. So this is a automatic movement, as all Speedmaster Reduced watches are. 52-hour power reserve, high beat rate. 28,800 vibrations per hour. That's all pretty typical of a Swiss watch. What I don't like is that it's a unidirectional rotor, which means one direction will wind the watch, but the other direction just freely spins. So I'm going to see if I can get it to spin here and then put it up to the microphone. This is going to take a second here. Do you hear that? If you can't hear it, I can feel it. Basically, the rotor is spinning like crazy, like a helicopter. And you can feel that when it's on your wrist. So that's something that I was actually surprised by. I feel like bidirectional winding should be standard on any luxury watch. Is it a deal breaker? No, it's not a deal breaker, but it's just something to keep in mind, So things for improvements. I really wish that the watch was a little bit thinner. Even though it's not a huge deal, I do agree with the internet that it's a little bit on the thick side. Second thing, again, the price, you could just buy a used moon watch or spend a few thousand, like 1,000 or 2,000 more, and just get a brand new full-sized Speedmaster and that unidirectional rotor. I think that should be updated so that it's bidirectional and we can get rid of that spinning helicopter sound. So, on that note, who's this watch for? Well, one, this is for people with small wrists like mine. Just to prove it, let me show you this watch. Let me show you, I don't have a Speedmaster, Omega Speedmaster, but I do have this moon swatch, and this is supposed to match the same proportions as the full-size real Omega Speedmaster. So this is what that looks like. And you know what? I could almost put both on at the same time now that I think about it, because I wear these watches quite loose. So here's just a side-by-side. As you can see, this one's definitely smaller. So let me show you what both of them look like on my 6-inch wrist at the same time. And you tell me which one looks bigger and which one looks too big or too small. So yeah, look at that. I can put both side by side. It's not pretty, but it works. So you can see on the same wrist, just the size difference between the two. So again, you have big wrists, then maybe you like this one more. But for 6.5 inch wrist, I think this one fits better. And just to give you another perspective is I have this Rolex Oyster Perpetual 36 millimeter. So again, just another size comparison. This watch still looks bigger because it's 38 and it has the bigger bezel. So just to give you a size comparison, just to keep in mind, like this is what 38 millimeters looks like. It does not look small. It does not look squished to me. I think it looks perfect, just like this 36 millimeter Oyster Perpetual. So size, it's great for small wrists. Two, the reason why you would get this watch is for people who wanted the original Speedmaster reduced, you're gonna like this watch because it kind of has the same bezel and the same layout as the original Speedmaster reduced from 1988 to like 2009. Now the problem with those older Speedmaster reduced is apparently because the movement was like modular, it was like two movements stacked on top of each other. Apparently it's harder to repair. So with this modern Speedmaster, I mean, I don't think I'll have to service it for another like 10 years probably. So again, if you want that original Speedmaster reduced look, this is probably the only reduced currently, or the only 38 millimeter currently that has that original look. Lastly, if you just want a Speedmaster that's a little bit special, I think this is a really good candidate. Now, again, this is not a limited edition. It's not like, they're only making 5,000 of these, but I don't think they're going to make a lot of them because it's tied to the Olympics, and the Olympics are like 2 months away. It's just a little bit special, a little bit unique, and probably after this year, you're not going to be able to buy this again. So all that considered, do I like it? I love this watch. I mean, this is now my daily watch. I've gone to bed with it, which I usually don't do with watches, but this watch in particular, it just hit a lot of the boxes. I'm finally very satisfied with this Omega Speedmaster. I've looked at other Speedmasters, but just something about this one really just works out for me. All right, and just a third-person wrist shot to end off this video. Again, 6-inch wrist, I'm 5'11", and this is the 38mm Speedmaster, 45mm lug to lug, so you can kind of see, I don't think it looks too squished. I actually think it's just the right size for my wrist. And again, 14.75mm in thickness. So I'm just gonna show you that side profile. Again, to me, I feel like most of the watch actually sinks into my wrist. You can kind of see how it sinks in there. So to me, it doesn't seem like a 14.75mm watch, but again, you let me know, does this watch look too thick for my wrist? Not that it matters, I'm definitely gonna keep this watch. I really like how it looks. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Subscribe for more content, and as always, see you all next time.